The latest ASUS ROG Strix G16 promises big things with its upgraded GPU and redesigned form. The brand has focused on giving the internals a bit of a boost in power, while at the same time offering a new design to the notebook, which, while being different from last year's G16, is very similar to the Strix Scar 18. Naturally, this year's G16 comes with an RTX 50 series GPU in the form of a 120-watt RTX 5080. This is one sleek looking piece of tech. It is ultra portable and ultra powerful, but it also has an ultra high price tag. But if you're watching this video, you kind of know what you're in for, and the price isn't really a problem. You just want to know how it performs, and we'll get into that shortly. The model in this review is the ASUS ROG Strix G16 G615LW. It packs the 120-watt RTX 5080 GPU, the Intel Core Ultra 9 275HK CPU, 2TB of SSD storage, and 64GB of RAM in the form of two 32GB sticks. I'll show you under the hood shortly and just how far you can upgrade this unit. The notebook includes a 16-inch 240Hz display with a 2560x1600 resolution. The panel here is IPS, which is kind of a bummer given how brilliant the mini LED tech display was on the Scar model. Also, in 2025, I think if you're spending this much money on a notebook, it should have a better panel. The outside of the notebook has seen some major redesign changes. The lid is made from a CNC aluminium, and there's some plastic on the sides and the bottom. You'll find an RGB strip that wraps around the bottom of the device too. ASUS makes this G16 in two colors. One is called the Volt Green and the other is Eclipse Grey. The green model is still grey, but it includes a green strip on the side for some reason. There's also a lit up ROG logo on the lid of the green model, whereas the Eclipse Grey version doesn't have any RGB on the lid. Perhaps the two design choices were done to offer a more subtle model for those like me who hate RGB flashing about on the lid on my notebook. If that's the case, then thanks ASUS for doing this. The green strip is kind of a strange thing to see, but I guess you can't call it Volt Green without having any actual green on the notebook in the first place. ASUS actually has a few models of this notebook on the market. For example, the G615LW I got to review includes translucent keys and no number pad feature on the trackpad, while some models I spotted on the ASUS website include no translucent keys, but they have the number pad. So there are a number of different variations of the notebook on the market, so be sure you know what you're getting when you buy it. Both models do include a full wraparound RGB strip on the base of the notebook that can be customized in the armory crate. It can also be turned off. The trackpad is huge here with a 36% increase over last year's model. It is pretty massive, so big that I often found myself rubbing my wrist on it while I was typing. The keyboard here is chiclet and quite fantastic to use. I do like the translucent keys which are found on the spacebar, QWER and ASDF keys. There's ample room here to type and it all felt great. You'll also get some function keys at the top. When it comes to the ports, on the left you'll find the reversible power connector, the LAN, HDMI port and one USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port. There's also two USB Type C ports and an audio jack combo port. Only one of these USB-C ports here is a Thunderbolt 4 with DisplayPort and power delivery. On the right hand side you'll find another two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports. ASUS has also included other features on the notebook, including a 1080p HD camera and a speaker system with smart amp technology. This dual speaker system is quite good. It provides clear sound and gets pretty loud. It also delivers quite a kick to deep sound effects and music. It has arrived to set the bar for gaming notebooks with the extreme performance and extreme price tag. This year's model of course now packs the RTX 50 series GPU range, and the model in this review is the RTX 5090 laptop model. In terms of connectivity, you'll get triple band Wi-Fi 7 here with Bluetooth 5.4. The battery is then 90 watts per hour and is charged with an included 280 watt power adapter found in the box. Together, this notebook weighs 2.65 kilograms, is 35.4 centimeters long, 26.8 centimeters wide, and 3 centimeters thick. I think the ASUS ROG Strix G16 is a cool looking notebook. It is very similar to the Scar with only a few slight exclusions of RGB here and there. For example, it doesn't have the animatrix lights on the lid, but I personally see that as a win. The Eclipse Grey variant is easy on the eyes, but the lid is a fingerprint magnet. I would have liked to see more metal on this design here because it does make use of a lot of plastic for my liking, but this sort of thing does bring down the cost. Before I get into the performance, I want to cover the toolless design at the bottom of the notebook. Similar to the Scar, you can remove the bottom shell of this notebook by sliding a small clip to the side and pulling the plate towards you. Inside you'll find all the inner workings of the notebook all clean and ready for you to gawk over. Here you'll also be able to upgrade the RAM and add an extra SSD. This model I got to review had one empty SSD slot. The bottom of the notebook does give you a good look at the cooling system and gives you access to clean the fans and well just generally dust inside. I do love this feature. It beats using a screwdriver and worrying about whether or not you should be opening the notebook in the first place. I say if a piece of technology includes a toolless design, it's kind of an invitation to be opened. Of course, you're probably interested in the performance, hey? The ASUS ROG Strix G16 comes with a beefy set of internal components and some impressive power adjustment technology that should be able to push games into some high frames. The CPU can be boosted to 175 watts under PL1 and PL2 settings, and the GPU can be boosted up to 175 watts of power. Together, this notebook can achieve 255 watts, but of course, the CPU adjustment isn't always set to 175 watts, but rather 80 watts. The GPU is then 150 watts on turbo mode, but it can be boosted by another 25 watts when using manual mode. All this overclocking and power is then monitored by the 87 degrees Celsius thermal cap. So with that being said, I maxed everything out on the notebook. I cranked the CPU to its cap overclock and the GPU to 175 watts. I also increased the memory clock by 150 MHz and the base clock by 50 MHz. We then have a notebook with some maxed out performance. I then ran some tests. I wanted to test out the notebook's DLSS 4 performance while at the same time check out its raw power. Here are the results I got. During my test, the notebook did get quite loud. I measured 60 decibels throughout all my tests. These fans are loud and whiny. They are hard to ignore. They ramp up to 100% and are constantly blowing when you're playing games. The GPU was peaking at 87 degrees Celsius with 174 watts of power being drawn. I did measure 100 degrees Celsius at times on the CPU, which is pretty crazy to see inside a notebook. But then again, it is an Intel chipset, and we know Intel doesn't really care about thermals on their CPUs, they just want the most power possible. I don't mind 100 degrees Celsius on my desktop gaming PC, but 100 degrees Celsius in a notebook kind of makes me scared. The memory clock here maxed out at 1787 MHz and the GPU clock hit 2160 MHz. It is likely the best you're going to get on this notebook with the manual overclock set to the limit. Saying that, I was impressed by the general performance of this notebook. Granted, it is loud and really pushes thermals to the extreme, but games were smooth and looked great. Even the lesser scores like Assassin's Creed Shadows without DLSS and FrameGen enabled still showed what this notebook is capable of. Of course, you can easily turn on DLSS 4 and get better performance. I do have to kind of complain here about the display on the Strix G16. It isn't remarkable by any means. ASUS puts OLED panels into its budget productivity notebooks now, and to see an IPS panel that doesn't even have HDR support is quite a letdown on this product, especially at this price tag. Sure, it has 240Hz support for those who even care about that, but 120Hz and a better panel would have gone a long way here. It is marketed at 500 nits of brightness, but I only measured 420 nits. It also only supports Dolby Vision and not HDR10, which is really strange. This means the majority of HDR content is not going to trigger when you watch it. You'll only get HDR if you watch Dolby Vision content, which is actually rarer to find in 2025 than you think. The same can be said for games with Dolby Vision gaming support. The list is pretty short. The battery is okay. I made sure to go into the BIOS and enable automatic iGPU mode, which enables the NVIDIA RTX 5080 only when I was playing games. This greatly helped the battery, saying that you'll get a good 10 hours of battery life here if you disable all the RGB nonsense, turn down the screen brightness and enable battery saver mode. In the end, I think the ASUS ROG Strix G16 is a great notebook. It packs some serious power and performance. You can get very similar results from a high-end 40 series notebook though, which always makes that something you have to weigh up when looking to purchase this model. However, if you know what you're in for, this does make for a great investment. So those are my thoughts on the ASUS ROG Strix G16. While you're here, be sure to check out my review of the Strix Scar 18 I have up on the channel too. I'll leave links in the description down below. Also be sure to visit glitch.online daily for gaming tech news and reviews. Until next time, farewell.